Good evening. Tonight's dinner will begin with the national anthem sung by Kelsey Barano, followed by an invocation given by Furman University chaplain Dr. Von Crow-Tipton, and then words of welcome from the Riley Institute's executive director, Brian Burrows.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Friends and colleagues, let us be still for a moment. Not because the world has stopped moving, but because it needs us to move with care. Pray with me. We give thanks for this gathering, Holy One, for the privilege of being together and for the work we celebrate tonight. We give thanks for the Riley Institute and all who believe that leadership is not about standing above others, but standing with them. Not about winning arguments, but about widening the circle of belonging. We give thanks for those who labor for strong public schools and for the sage insistence that diversity is a gift to be cherished. In a time when noise often passes for wisdom and division masquerades as conviction, we're grateful for work that chooses facts over fear and hope over heat. Grant us the grace to remember that nonpartisanship is not neutrality about justice, and that agenda-free search for truth demands moral courage. To that end, enlarge our state with leaders, young and seasoned, who are impatient with injustice, yet patient with people, who are bold in vision, yet humble in practice. As we honor the work of those in our state, enable us all to embrace the larger truth that the measure of our success is not what we accumulate, but what we contribute. Not who is left out, but who is brought in. Inspired by this good and creative work, may we go back into our communities with sharper minds, larger hearts, and steadier hands, ready to do the next right thing for the common good. May we never forget the world is not changed by cynics who see what is wrong, acquiesce, and shrug, but by people of creative and faithful hope who see what is possible and then rise to face that possibility and get to work. Amen.
Good evening. It is a gift to be with all of you tonight, beginning this new year and on this first day of South Carolina's 2026 legislative session. Since 2006, the Riley Institute at Furman has orchestrated this dinner, and our namesakes for these awards, first Furman alumnus and former governor of South Carolina and U.S. Secretary of Education, Dick Riley. I promise there wasn't even a thing that said pause for applause. That's just what happens when you say his name. And former South Carolina Speaker of the House and U.S. Ambassador to Canada, David Wilkins. Those namesakes co-host this event each year with Furman President Elizabeth Davis, and we're grateful for their principled leadership, which inspires us to work towards a thriving South Carolina where every person, regardless of background, has an access to education, meaningful work, and a voice in their community's future. Together with Secretary Riley, Ambassador Wilkins, and President Davis, I'd like to thank all legislators, appointed officials, department heads, South Carolina Supreme Court justices, and leaders representing the many industries and regions of our great state for joining us this evening. And our deepest gratitude to our sponsors who make this evening possible. Our presenting sponsor is Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina, one of South Carolina's largest employers. We're grateful for their support of the Riley Institute's work to advance social and economic progress across South Carolina. Thanks also to our cocktail reception sponsor, Total Wine. It's one of my favorite places too. Our dessert reception sponsor, Nelson Mullins, our partner level sponsor, Duke Energy and South Carolina ETV, who This is a warm crowd, I love it, who graciously partners with us every year to tell the compelling stories of our winners through video, which you'll be enjoying during our awards presentation tonight. Thanks also to our advocate level sponsors, whose name you see listed on the screens, and our friend level sponsors who are listed in the back of the program. Now, a very warm crowd. Now it is time for dinner, and we're not going to stand in the way of that. Once plates have been served, we'll continue our program, starting with remarks from Ambassador Wilkins. Thank you all for joining us this evening.
And now, please welcome to the stage Ambassador David Wilkins.
Well, good evening. Good evening. There you go. Well, happy 2026 to all of you. For those of you who are still eating, please continue to do so. Susan and I raised 2 sons, so I'm used to being around the dinner table with a lot of noise being made and nobody paying a bit of attention to what I might have to say. Susan and I are delighted to be with all of you once again at the start of another legislative session as we celebrate impactful state leadership. And what an incredible crowd we have tonight. Thank you for attending our 18th Riley-Wilkins Leadership Awards dinner. This is probably the largest crowd we've ever had. It's hard to believe that we held our very first dinner 20 years ago this month in 2006. And this would have been our 20th year celebration, except that we took a 2-year break because of COVID. Not that I can see with the bright lights, but I'm just wondering, how many of you, this is not your first dinner? You've been to others. Raise your hand. Well, that's incredible. Thank you very much. You all just keep coming back each year, and for that, Secretary Riley and I are truly grateful. The concept of the Wilkins-Riley One South Carolina Leadership Awards is simple. When legislative and civic leaders commit to working together across aisles and industries, they can accomplish extraordinary things for our communities and our state. Simple? Yes. Easy? Absolutely not. In today's climate, it can sometimes feel impossible. And that's why it matters all the more. Tonight, we honor those who have done the hard work, legislative leaders who have reached across the aisle to improve lives, civic leaders who built bridges across sectors to strengthen communities, partners in progress who prove that collaboration can transform entire regions. From my own experience of 29 years of public service, I can tell you that the toughest compromises often lead to the most enduring progress. In this present world of got-you politics, civility, collaboration, relationships, respect matter more than ever. I've seen firsthand that when our leaders choose principle above politics, unity over division, progress over partisanship, and service over self, South Carolina is always the winner. And that's the legacy of our past and present award winners whose records of leadership and commitment to bipartisanship continue to inspire us today. Now, for a moment, I want to talk to you about a former State House representative, former state senator, former governor, former Secretary of Education. An individual who epitomizes what civility in the political arena is all about. An individual who long ago learned the art of being able to disagree with someone without being disagreeable. Dick Riley and I go back a long way. We both grew up in Greenville. Our fathers were dear friends. 80 years ago, our fathers shared a one-room law office when my father was just starting his legal career after coming back from World War II. And while Secretary Riley is a proud lifelong Democrat, and I am a proud lifelong Republican, we have shared a respect and friendship for each other that has always transcended party lines. And we have been law partners at Nelson Mullins for the past 17 years. When I was first elected to the South Carolina House way back in 1980, my best-known constituent from House District 24 was my governor, Dick Riley. During my service in the House, I had Democrat opposition in the general election 5 times. I never once saw my opponent's sign in Dick Riley's yard. Come to think of it, I never once saw my sign in Dick Riley's yard. Governor, we have made a pretty darn good team over the years. And I can't help but believe our fathers are smiling down upon us once again this evening. Please join me in giving Secretary Riley the rousing applause he deserves. Thank you. It's all about celebrating, excuse me. In closing, I want to say first Secretary Riley and I are truly grateful for the Riley-Wilkins One South Carolina Leadership Awards. It's all about celebrating bipartisanship, collaboration, and leadership exemplified by our past and present award winners. Thank you very much. And now it's my privilege to welcome to the stage President and CEO of the International African American Museum, Dr. Tanya Matthews, to present our 2026 Partners in Progress Award.
Good evening. Oh, there was an open bar for much longer than that. Good evening. A phrase that I think many of us have heard often, I will expand on. Never let perfection be the enemy of progress, but never let the promise of progress dim your ambitions for perfection. Because it is all about the journey. And that is what we are here to celebrate and commemorate this evening. And I have the honor and privilege of talking about an organization, partners that came together for that kind of journey. 4 years ago, the Riley Institute added Building One South Carolina Forum and the associated One South Carolina Partners in Progress Award to recognize landmark, pivotal, essential, necessary, collaborative achievements that contribute significantly to the social and economic progress in South Carolina. So if you want to talk about social and economic progress in South Carolina, you must believe in a journey. The International African American Museum ourselves was honored to be part of this group and constituency as a prior award winner. So I do want to pause for a moment and invite my colleagues to take a bit of the spotlight and shine a little light on representatives from all of the past Partners in Progress award-winning initiatives that have come here this evening. Now, my notes here say to ask you to hold your applause, but since I have a microphone, you may start clapping as soon as I start recognizing folks. So in the room, we have our youngest recipients, turn 90, that won the award in 2024. Followed by my esteemed colleagues at the International African American Museum who won in 2023. And of course, our veterans, our old dogs at Northside Development Group who won in 2022. Now, in 2025, we paused this award so we could take some time to think about how to bring this forum and that forum together, to bring the forum and the awards dinner together in one program because, of course, we are One South Carolina. And we are executing that for the very first time this evening. So please join me in thanking the staff who have not slept in 2 weeks for pulling all of this and bringing all of us together this evening. Many of you had the opportunity to attend this afternoon's forum and hear stories and testimonies and conversation about the work that this year's winner, indeed the Center for Heirs Property, was able to present. Tonight, it will be my honor to stand alongside them on the stage as they receive their award. When I was thinking about how I would introduce the Center for Heirs Property, I began reflecting on the word legacy. Legacy can mean a lot of different things. It can be an idea, it can be a policy, it can be an impact in ways that you didn't even know on someone who would go off to do and build something great. But there is something special about legacy when it is tangible, Perhaps when you can pat a son on the back, or you can hold the hand of the granddaughter that you know is going to take everything forward and farther, or perhaps even when you can grab a handful of dirt that you know this was dirt that your great, great, great ancestors trod. That maybe there was some fighting over, maybe some blood was spilled to protect it, maybe a whole lot of paperwork was unearthed, maybe a Bible was opened that had that one shred of evidence that this was you and that was yours. That is the story that the Center for Heirs Property protects. As someone who is from a little bit closer to the Mason-Dixon line than South Carolina, I remember growing up hearing stories about 40 acres and a mule and thinking it was all mythology. Back up in DC, we don't have land, we have Congress. Those are two very different things. So when I got to South Carolina and I began to understand not just the concept of land ownership, but land that had been passed down from generation to generation to generation, I was inspired, I was moved, and then I heard the stories about how a lot of this was passed down during eras of perhaps trust, perhaps distrust, but it was passed with a knowing smile and a handshake, and perhaps not everything was in place and in order. And that in order to keep this land, this legacy in the hands of the descendant, well, now we needed more than a handshake and maybe more than a single piece of paper. We needed process. We needed advocacy. Lord help us, we needed lawyers. We needed lots and lots of things and partners and people coming together. And tonight, we celebrate an organization that has been working for more than 20 years to preserve more than 200 years of legacy all across the state of South Carolina and becoming a beacon to the entire Southeast. And with this, I pause our remarks for a video so that the Center for Heirs Property can tell you about themselves in their own words.
Land gives you the first element of ownership, control, and freedom. With land, and especially land the title is cleared, you have the ability and the freedom to use that land to plan a financial future.
Heirs property is land that has been passed down for multiple generations, often resulting in multiple heirs owning the land, which makes it more difficult, really, for it to be an asset. It's such a significant issue because, one, it is the major wealth building tool in America. And if you cannot maximize the use of that land and pass it on, then you are, to some extent, preventing them from leaving the legacy that they would like to leave.
My great-grandfather, George Singleton, was enslaved, and once he became a free person, he acquired all this land through his slave owner. From what I have researched so far, this property means everything to me. It is a legacy of what my grandfather left his children, and it's so much lineage and memories here. It means everything to me.
For 20 years, the Center for Heirs Property has been helping under-resourced families and small acreage landowners protect what matters most, which is the roof over their head and the land under their feet for generations to come. We do that with several tools. Legal support is one of those, land management, and broadly, we're also empowering communities. So under that legal support, what we're doing is we are conducting educational seminars. Our lawyers literally go out, and for maybe about an hour or so, they're providing legal education around the issue of heirs property. We're also drafting wills, because that is one of the primary ways to either reduce heirs property or to prevent it. The other challenge I see is that these families own an asset that could be used to help them move out of poverty if they had the right tools. And so we started the Sustainable Forestry Program, which consisted of education. So we helped them access those conservation programs to actual professionals in the forestry arena.
The Center of Heirs Property helped me navigate a lot of things. They gave me a clear understanding of what heirs property was. They really helped me a lot, and they kind of just gave me a plethora of information on what heirs property is really all about.
Building trust is so essential to our work. Unfortunately, trust has been broken in many of the communities we work in. Therefore, we have a community engagement team that conducts outreach. They meet with community leaders, faith networks, and agencies to build relationships while also learning more about the community's needs and experiences.
Over the last 2 decades, CHIP has been able to resolve 445 titles valued at more than $33 million. For land size, it's about 1,600 acres. So in essence, what we've done is we've unlocked the potential in the land for the families so that they can now multiply the equity in that land and also improve their communities. After 15 years of doing this work, we saw where there was such a great need. We were getting calls from landowners in other states saying, "Can you help us?" And unfortunately, we had to say no, because either there was not another organization doing this work, and our attorneys are not licensed outside of South Carolina. So what that did is it helped us think about how could we amplify our work without doing it. So we were able to partner with the World Wildlife Fund, Kimberly-Clark, and the Mississippi Center for Justice to actually pilot an heirs property initiative. And that was in 2021, so it was very successful. And from that point, we have ventured out into 4 other states and helping them use our model to serve the landowners in their state. They're able to take whatever component they would like that works with their community.
Land is more than monetary value. It represents family, it represents history, it represents legacy. Land is, at its core, a place we call home. That's why protecting it matters.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know the woman coming to receive this evening's award will remind us that it is never one person, that it takes a whole team to pull off what an organization like the Center for Heirs Property does, because humility matters, but also the passion, the prowess, the relentless commitment to progress of leadership also matters. So it is my privilege to introduce to you tonight, receiving on behalf of the Center for Heirs Property, their president and CEO, Dr. Jenny Stevens. Congratulations, Jenny.
Good evening. As a graduate of the Riley Institute's Diversity Leadership Institute, I have seen the power of bringing people across sectors and perspectives together, not just to talk about challenges, but to build durable solutions. Thank you to the Riley Institute and OneSouthCarolina Forum for this honor. It is truly meaningful for the Center for Heirs Property to be recognized in a space that values collaboration, progress, and long-term impact. Now, I would be remiss if I did not say that this award belongs to many people. It belongs to the families who trusted us with deeply personal stories, often at a moment of crisis, when their land, their homes, and their legacies were at risk. It belongs to the attorneys, the staff, the board members, and partners who chose to do hard, often invisible work in a system that was not designed for ease or speed. And it belongs to community leaders who understood early on that heirs property is not just a legal issue. It is an economic, cultural, and generational one. When CHIP was founded, the problem we were trying to address was often misunderstood or minimized. Families were losing land not because they were irresponsible, but because the legal system was inaccessible and unforgiving. Fractionated ownership, outdated laws, lack of legal counsel, these weren't abstract concepts. They were barriers with real consequences. Over time, what became clear is that unresolved heirs property doesn't just affect individual families. It affects agricultural productivity, it affects housing stability, it affects disaster recovery, it affects local tax bases, land use planning, and community continuity. In short, it affects all of us. CHIP's work has always been about more than clearing title. It's about stability, giving families legal clarity so they can make informed decisions. It's about opportunity, helping land work for families rather than against them. And increasingly, it's about systems, sharing what we've learned so solutions can reach beyond any single community or organization. What makes this work possible is partnership. No one entity solves systemic problems alone. Progress happens when legal institutions, policymakers, funders, community organizations, and residents aligned around a shared understanding of both the problem and the responsibility to address it. So tonight, I want to thank those of you in this room who have chosen engagement over indifference and collaboration over isolation. Your leadership matters more than you may ever realize. As we look ahead, the work continues and the need remains urgent. But I am hopeful because conversations like the ones we've had today are happening more often. Hopeful because solutions are being tested, refined, and scaled. And hopeful because the people in this room have the capacity to move the needle in meaningful ways. I'll close where I often do with 3 words that guide this work and frankly guide me. Educate, advocate, and inspire. Educate because understanding system is the first step to changing them. Advocate because progress requires action, not just awareness. And inspire because lasting change happens when people believe their involvement matters. Thank you again for this honor and for your commitment to building communities that are not only resilient, but just.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Stevens, for the incredible work you're doing through the Center for Heirs Property to preserve culture and advance economic mobility in South Carolina and beyond. I'm Anita Zucker, and it is my pleasure tonight to introduce our 2026 Award for Civic Leadership, which I had the honor of receiving in 2012. The Civic Leadership Award celebrates the selfless dedication of a South Carolina leader to the betterment of their community and all who live there. This is the Riley Institute's 14th Civic Award presentation, and we are so pleased that a few previous winners are here with us tonight. Please stand when I call your name. Bill Barnett, Nella Barkley, tonight, I'm honored to tell you about our 2026 Civic Leadership Award winner, my dear friend, Bill Finn. In 1982, my late husband Jerry and I had the pleasure of first meeting Bill at our launch for our company, the Intertech Group. Jerry and Bill connected naturally through their industries. Jerry used to joke that he crossed paths with Bill more frequently in China than in Charleston. But the strong relationship they formed stemmed not as much from what they did, but more so in how they did their work, through their shared commitment to principled leadership grounded in honesty, integrity, compassion, and social responsibility. Fast forward to 2008, my husband passed away, and suddenly I found myself standing at the helm of the Intertech Group, filling his shoes. Losing Jerry many years too early and holding the title of CEO are two things that I hadn't expected in my life, but there I was. And as I navigated through my grief and my new role, I began to look to leaders who shared my values and Jerry's values to consider how I would lead. Bill may not be aware until tonight that he has played the role of mentor for me. Back then and still today, he has been that person I can call for wise counsel and sound guidance, and I can count myself as lucky to be just one of many who have benefited from his willingness to invest his time and talent into the lives of others. I've had the privilege to work alongside Bill in many capacities throughout our decades-long friendship. Through our work together on numerous boards and community leadership roles, I've seen Bill show. He's shown up time and time again as a mentor to people who need that key connection point to take their next step and to accomplish their goals. Social capital is Bill's superpower, a superpower that he doesn't hold for himself, but intentionally works to share with others. Through his leadership with College of Charleston Shotland Scholars Program, Bill connects students to establish C-suite leaders who can give them tools to become the next generation of conscientious leaders that our communities need. Through his board leadership with Turn 90, he forges pathways for people to access opportunities to find success after time in prison. Bill sees the value that we gain as a whole society when our social connections are expanded to give a fair shot or a second chance or an equal opportunity to someone new. These social ties don't just help individuals. They make us collectively stronger as a community and as a state. They make us one South Carolina. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "We are faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. This is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action." When I have the chance to talk to students and young people, I emphasize these key principles that my husband also held, which we lovingly called Mr. Z's keys, having a sense of urgency and a bias for action. You can't help but see the urgency of now and the impact of positive action when you look at Bill Finn's track record for leadership. Once a college intern at Aston Johnson, who would eventually become the company's CEO and chairman of the board, who would go on to serve as the business advisor for the Shotland Scholars Program at the College of Charleston School of Business, and a founder of the Charleston Regional Development Alliance, and who has served in leadership roles on the boards of numerous organizations, including Turn 90, Santee Cooper, Trident United Way, the South Carolina Manufacturers Alliance, and SCE-TV, among others. In the midst of all of this, he still makes time to pick up the phone for friends like me. To understand more about Bill's leadership, let's take a moment to watch this video created by SCE-TV.
My father was a an executive in the family business. He and his older brother ran a family business outside of Boston, a textile business in the wool industry. Dad would go to work every Saturday morning, and I would love to go to work with him, starting when I was about 5. And I can still see today the mill, the looms, I can hear the looms, and I can smell the wool in the mill. Remember the finishing and the fabrics, the spinning and the weave. It just was, for me, it was really exciting. And I think I decided in those years that I wanted to make something in my life. I love making things. I love seeing things start and then finish, and a finished product that people were going to use. And that became a passion for me my entire life. So my dad was a real influence. My mom, on the other side, was also very influential. When they integrated the schools in Boston with buses, they couldn't get school teachers. My mom put her hand up and said, those kids deserve an education, and I want to teach in those inner city schools that are being integrated. And she loved kids. And I think her love for kids and her love for seeing that everybody got an equal chance was something that I've carried my whole life. I've always thought it was part of my role as a chief executive officer to see that the company is involved in the communities that we serve.
I've known Bill Finn for over 25 years. When I was a young county council member, I used to meet with Bill at the Atlanta Bread Company, and he would provide real leadership moments, these little nuggets that would stick.
Bill's leadership has meant a lot to both our state and our community. He's really elevated public media here in our state through his leadership and his financial support, but he's also brought lots of other people to public media through his sponsorship of screenings and programs that really elevate South Carolina's important stories, and he allows our stories to be told to a national audience.
I came to the college in 2007, and my very first event for faculty was an event that also included members of our Board of Governors. And Bill was there. And here I am, I'm brand new, I don't even have a PhD yet. I'd never really worked in industry. Bill realized who I was, that I was a bit embarrassed, and he really immediately took me under his wing. And that's been the nature of Bill my whole career, is that he's really gone out of his way to introduce students who wouldn't otherwise, or faculty who wouldn't otherwise have a connection in the community. I had an idea to start a program. Basically, I realized that there were people in the business community like Bill who wanted to help and give back and offer advice to students. Bill heard through the grapevine what I was trying to do and immediately opened up his contact list to me.
I actually had the opportunity to serve as a mentor for the scholars with Bill, and I always tell those scholars, you do not know how lucky you are to have someone of his stature, his leadership, his integrity and character to be leading you as a 20-year-old.
He continues to provide this winsome spirit. He's just an amazing person. I think of his leadership impact as being measured in decades, not years. The way that Bill approaches leadership is amazing in that it's like water. It's just easy. You can immerse yourself into it, and when you come out of it, you always see the residue of his impact on your life and the lives that you impact.
I would say that Bill's leadership style is one of humility. It's also one of inspiration, and it's one of trust. He leads through encouragement and inspiration, not through command and control.
I think one of the things I say to students today, and it's very simple, my wishes are that they do well and they do good. And I think principal leaders do well. That means they do their job. And I don't care whether they want to be an executive or a CEO. If you're going to be the CEO, you better do it well. Or if you want to be a mom, you better do it well. But find time to do good. And I think, to me, if we all can find time to do good, I think this will be a better state and a better nation.
And now it is my great honor to present the 2026 Riley-Wilkins OneSouthCarolina Civic Leadership Award to Bill Finn. Bill, congratulations.
Those of you that know me know I'm embarrassed now. I mean, I love people, and I've had a great career, and I never have been one to talk about myself. But I want to thank Anita, your wonderful remarks, and thank you all, those of you that are here and have been involved in this honor. It is truly humbling for me. I accept it with a deep gratitude to the countless people I've been fortunate to work alongside: business leaders, nonprofit leaders, educators, legislators, public officials, all of whom share a deep commitment for expanding opportunity in this state. South Carolina is one of the fastest growing states in the nation. In the first quarter of 2025, we actually led the nation in GDP growth, and we were second in personal income growth. Now, we may not hit those numbers every quarter, but it shows the remarkable progress we're making. It's not often that we're leading national ranking lists, but it's worth celebrating when we are, and it speaks about the progress, the tremendous progress that we're making in South Carolina. Tonight I have just 3 points, because the experts say that after dinner you only get 3 points before people either fall asleep or reach for their phones. So I'll be brief. When the world changes, we adapt. I saw this firsthand when I became the first chair of the South Carolina Manufacturers Alliance and the last chair of what was the South Carolina Textile Manufacturers. Textiles was central to our economy for decades in this state, but our leaders recognized that the world was changing around us. They were willing to imagine and commit to something much larger than what we have always done. My career and my community involvement has been guided by something very simple that I learned early. If we always do what we've always done, we'll always get what we've already got. In South Carolina, our leaders, and we have some of them here, our past leaders, and some of our current leaders, and some potentially future leaders, have committed to not doing what we've always done, but doing something different to build a better future. In 1983, I met Governor Riley for the first time. He spoke at an Aston Johnson board meeting at Greenville Mayor Max Heller's home. Hearing his vision for South Carolina convinced our board not only to continue investing in South Carolina, but to move our headquarters here in 1986. Fast forward to today, our businesses around the state have transformed tremendously and changed, just as the world around us has. But those changes help make South Carolina home to some of the most respected, sophisticated, and advanced manufacturing brands in the world. When you think about it, how proud we should be today. We build state-of-the-art composite passenger aircraft, military fighter jets, world-class automobiles and vans, highly efficient gas turbines that are used to facilitate AI growth around the world, and much, much more. Our advanced industries are globally competitive and globally recognized. We should be proud of that. But to me, what matters most is these innovations create new opportunities for our citizens, pathways to better jobs, stable careers, and the pride that comes from meaningful work. South Carolina's growth story is at its core a story of courage. Leaders willing to innovate, collaborate, and think ahead.
I'm humbled to call many of them friends and very grateful that many of them are here this evening. My second point is that none of this progress would have been possible without leaders who prioritized education. Innovation doesn't happen in silos. Our growth comes from cross-section cooperation to ensure South Carolinians have access to education and training they need to seize these new opportunities. We are deeply thankful to our legislators and state leaders who over many years have supported critical investments in early childhood and K through 12 education, supporting strong colleges and universities, supporting our exceptional technical college system, and job training programs to help build and rebuild many lives. These investments have expanded equity and access, giving more South Carolinians a first chance, a second chance at getting ahead. If we want to continue growing, and I believe we do, education must remain a top priority. The future of South Carolina's industry and our economy depends on the willingness to support continuous education for all of our citizens. The more we invest in people, the stronger and the more resilient we will be. Lastly, my personal mantra, and it was touched on in the video, is whatever you set your mind to do, do it well and do good. Throughout my career and into retirement, I've mentored many managers, colleagues, students, and I should add a college president here and there, as well as a U.S. Senator. I've told every one of them the same thing. Whatever you set your mind to do, do it well and do good. I'm incredibly proud how well South Carolina is doing. We're growing, we're innovating, we're creating opportunities that really matter. But doing well isn't good enough. We have to be intentional about doing good. That means asking ourselves, who's being left behind during our economic growth? Who doesn't have a fair shot? And where are the gaps that we still need to close? Leadership isn't just about achieving more. It's about lifting more people as we achieve it. My friends at Turn 90 would say, the future is about creating pathways to success, even when none currently exist. The true measure of our success is whether every South Carolinian, no matter what their background, their zip code, or starting point, can thrive here. My hope is we continue to build a South Carolina where everyone can do what they love, do it well, and find time and purpose to do good. In closing, South Carolina's best days are ahead of us if we stay committed to thinking forward, working together, and lifting up every person who South Carolina calls home. Thank you.
Good evening. Secretary Riley, Ambassador Wilkins, former colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It is an honor for me to be here, and Bill, gosh, what great words. I was thinking, you know, leadership comes in all shapes and sizes and fonts. And isn't it wonderful to live in the greatest state in the best country in the world, South Carolina? I'm Gary Simmerl, and I'm pleased, I'm actually more than pleased, to have the opportunity tonight to bring about to with you, for you, the next recipient of the Legislative Leadership Award. This award I was humbled to receive in 2019, and at the time, David Wilkins, who was my speaker, told me that he had nothing to do with who was selected for the award, to which I responded to him, obviously. But before we get to that, in talking about this great state, I do want to take the opportunity to recognize those former members who are with us tonight who also received this award. And Tanya, using the David Wilkins doctrine, having this mic, I ask that you hold your applause to the end of this great list. Representative Gilda Cobb-Hunter. All right, you're not following directions. Representative Dan Cooper. My Senator, Wes Hayes. Representative James Smith. Representative Rita Allison. Representative Weston Newton. President Thomas Alexander. Senator Nikki Setzler. Senator Katrina Shealy. Thank you all for your principled leadership. It is to exemplify leadership takes courage, and we all know that. But we also know, following Senator Hayes, the Scout motto, we want to leave South Carolina better than we found it. You know, now, Neal, I get a little opportunity to talk about my friend, Neal Collins. Yes, when Neal was elected, I had made it to leadership. And Neal came to Columbia not wanting to make friends, but to change the world. And he burst through the doors of the State House in the attempts to do this. As a matter of fact, he called his own caucus meeting rather than just having a regular caucus meeting. But the thing I learned about Neal was that while he didn't come to make friends, he did come to make the difference. And in making the difference, he had to learn, which he did with aplomb. You had to build consensus. In order to build consensus, you had to create trust. In order to create trust, you had to foster relationships. And ladies and gentlemen, then you become effective. And guess what else happens? You build friendships. Neal Collins is a guy who takes time to explain the issue once he has studied it. I read just one day his Twitter feed, and I thought, whew, aren't there supposed to be a limit to the number of words? But it told me and it showed me his commitment, his devotion to not only the public that he served, but the greater good of South Carolina, because we're called state representative, state senator, not local. While we represent at the local level, we serve a much broader audience. Neal recognized that quickly and started making a difference. And I will tell you today, if this state, if this legislature had more Neal Collins, we would be much better off. Now, I can keep talking and roasting and complimenting Neal, but I think it's time to hear what others have said about him. Join me as we watch this video.
I was, for the most part, born and raised here in Easley, and I grew up in a mobile home community. I rode the school bus every day during my schooling, and it amazed me, even when I was a third grader, for the school bus to pick us up and then go to a ranch house, then to go to an apartment complex, and then to what I thought was a wealthy neighborhood. I've learned since that we're not so wealthy in Pickens County. But even from a young age, I was amazed by the opportunities and the obstacles that people face. So I wanted to move back to my hometown and help out my community. And as young as middle school and high school, I thought law and politics was where my gifts were.
We were able to do saliva testing during the time of COVID. We were a gang of misfits. It was a realtor, an attorney, a nurse practitioner, and a landscaper that formulated a saliva testing program that kept many industries in this area productive and working.
I think you could see during Helene, as an example, a lot of people, instead of just talking or posting on social media, Neal was out, started off actually trying to get out and deliver generators, but then ended up realizing he could use his connections to create a network of people to deliver generators to people in need, people with medical needs that wouldn't live if they didn't have a way to charge their devices and serve the community that way.
He didn't ask for favors, he asked for information, questions, and how he could serve, how he could help us. I could talk to him 2 or 3 times a day. We had 95% of our system out of power for many of them half a week to a week. And every day I'm talking to Neal, asking if he knows certain people to pull the strings and to help us and to contact the right people. And it's because of his leadership and his foresight into saying, hey, this is one Pickens County. We are on the same team. What do we need to get done? And we get it done because of his leadership.
The number one issue in South Carolina was, is, and forever will be education. If I could do one thing, it would actually be 2 things, and they're very, very difficult, but streamlining the governance and then also completely changing the funding. I mean, on the funding side, 44% comes from local funding. I don't think anybody thinks that that is fair or equitable. When one county has a nuclear power station and one doesn't, and that district is benefited because of that, it just kind of highlights how we have the funding kind of messed up in South Carolina from that perspective.
Neal doesn't always seek the political solution. He seeks the solution that's best for the people. I've told him before that he's not always the best politician because sometimes the best political answer would mean that he steps back or doesn't step into an issue, but he does what's right, even if it cost him some on a political level. We live in a world that people are disgruntled with politicians, and along comes Neal, and is he perfect? No, but he serves. And I think over the long arc of his career, the community has rallied to him because they've learned that he cares. And I think that's what we're hungry for in our local community and our state and this country, is people who don't test the polls to give an answer, but just show up and they care and they serve with a heart.
He's very intelligent. He knows his stuff. It's something that people may not know. I think he's well versed in Paw Patrol. And that may have to do with his daughter, or it may not, but I do know he knows all the characters of Paw Patrol and he celebrates them wildly.
Neal is all about Christmas. Loves everything Christmas, especially the movie A Christmas Story, complete with a leg lamp in his window at home. And he loves Little Debbie Christmas tree cakes.
He is a servant leader. His heart is in the right place. He's asking what he can do for us.
The number one thing South Carolina has going for it is people. We are so blessed to live in the community that we live in, the state that we live in, and the nation that we live in. So I serve on the South Carolina 250 Commission, and we're celebrating 250 years from the American Revolution. And I'd much rather be here today than our forefathers were 250 years ago. And honestly, I'd rather be living 250 years from now than right now, because I know that it's going to be a better community, it's going to be a better state, and going to be a better nation.
And now it is my high honor for this year's recipient, 2026 Wilkins Riley Leadership Award for One South Carolina, Representative Neal Collins. So, you know, it's Neal's turn to come to the podium, but I had to take one more privilege, Mr. Cooper. For Neal, your friends at One South Carolina recognize, these are hard to get, by the way. Let's get a picture with it. Neal Collins.
I have never been as nervous as I was just sitting there with Gary Simmerl introducing me. You never know. But Gary, thank you for that very kind introduction. I've known Gary for a dozen years now, and throughout that time, he has been consistent in his wit, his values, his service, and of course, his luscious, luscious hair. My growing bald spot is envious. One lesson Gary taught me early on is this: unbending principles is government for gods, and ours is more suitable for men. It's a reminder that good governance does indeed require conviction, but also wisdom and restraint. And Gary, thank you for your leadership. Thank you, ETV, for that video. What y'all don't know is that because of the video, I was not able to dance to the podium with a walk-up Taylor Swift song. What you definitely didn't know is I chose Taylor Swift because Secretary Riley is a Swiftie. And where's the camera? Taylor, if you're watching, you are invited to perform at next year's banquet. Pink or purple, colors you can pick. But good evening. 4 years ago, I had the honor of being selected as one of 20 officials nationwide to referee the Division I National Wrestling Championships. Over 3 days, we were evaluated, and the top 10 ref the final. I did not make the top 10. However, a few months later, I received a phone call informing me that I had been named the D1 Wrestling Official of the Year. That night, I told my wife about the award. Her response was simple: but you didn't ref a final, how could you win? So, A, you understand my hesitation when I told her about this award. B, you do not need to worry about me having an inflated sense of self-importance. And C, I am fully aware that I still have work to do. The Riley-Wilkins Award, though, is truly the Heisman of legislative awards each year because it's not about a specific industry, issue, or ideology. It's about effective governance. Honestly, when I look at the list of previous award winners, I feel undeserving. It's the Hall of Fame of the General Assembly over the past 2 decades. People known for seriousness, judgment, and service. I am deeply humbled to be included. I also understand that awarding to me this year is less about tenure and more about that yearning for a different kind of politics and politician. But it's not necessarily my goal to be different. I just want to be serious. We often see politicians today being unserious. They are dividing people, not uniting them. They are not wanting to be a leader of everyone. Rather, they are wanting to be a leader of anyone. They are seeking attention over responsibility. And just as frustrating are the ones who vote for the path of least resistance and not speaking truth.
But like most of you, I want someone who governs for the betterment of South Carolina, someone who elevates their community rather than themselves, someone who immensely cares about being in public office but does not care about being in public office, if you understand. Statistically speaking, I should not be in public office or standing here tonight. I grew up in a mobile home community. My dad earned $20,000 a year as a pizza and dishwasher, yet tonight I have the privilege of addressing an audience of more than 500 people who paid what my dad cleared in a 40-hour work week to be at this dinner. As a side note, this crowd is quite flattering, but I know that if instead of a political speech I was being hanged tonight, the crowd would be even larger. But I'm not here by accident to a large degree. It's due to serious people doing serious work. Some of the most formative moments of my life occurred in an elementary gifted and talented classroom in the 1990s, made possible by the Education Improvement Act of 1984. What began as a penny sales tax became a generational commitment to public education through leaders like then Governor Riley and then Representative Wilkins. In a full circle moment, I now serve on the EIA subcommittee of EOC, distributing that penny. Reflect on that. A student who benefited in the 1990s from what leaders did in the 1980s is now hopefully repaying that favor in the 2020s. What initially brought in $217 million, this year we will allocate $1.3 billion to education because of the penny, the majority of that to teacher pay. Next school year, starting teacher pay will be at least $50,000 when it was only $28,000 just 11 years ago. The EIA formed because serious people who used to sit in your very seats, from legislators to industry to educators to advocates, created a serious institution. Look around. Y'all represent the civic infrastructure of South Carolina. In many ways, this room runs South Carolina. When unified, you shape policy, culture, and opportunity for generations. With such authority comes responsibility. Perhaps the most responsible thing we can all do in these times is elect serious people and defeat unserious ones. Applying survival of the fittest to politics, I do not believe extremism will ultimately succeed. I do not believe this populism by rage baiting will endure. I believe maturity will ultimately withstand viral tweets. In a world of uncertainty, we all need to return home. And what I mean by that is we need to focus on our roots, on our communities. If we align with people who are doing that, all will go well. So the questions are we in our communities? And are we choosing seriousness over spectacle? Speaking of seriousness, I cannot leave this podium without talking about the importance of public education. Public education has no lobby, just consequences. As Winston Churchill stated in his address at Harvard, the empires of the future are the empires of the mind. In preparation for this speech, I watched Secretary Riley's confirmation hearing to become Secretary of Education. Senator Strom Thurmond mistakenly said, we think you will make an outstanding Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Education, to which then Governor Riley quipped, "They're related, Senator." And he was right. We need to elect serious people who understand that defense and public education are in fact related. I would like to thank some people. First, thank you to my wife and my 3-year-old Olivia. Olivia won't remember this night, but maybe she will see my love for her in video one day. My mom and her husband are here. Mom, I can never repay your love and belief. I didn't know if that was her or... Mom, I can never repay your love and belief in me. I told you that you may have a fancy dinner one day. My second mom is here as well, Miss Wilma Sheely, my pastor, Dr. Paul Thompson, my law partners, Les Hendricks and Jess Sterling. Thank you, Judge Clary. God placed you in my life at precisely the right moment to have the courage to be independent politically. Dan Bracken, the Whites, the Hodges, the Mansells, Attorney General Alan Wilson, thank you all for being here. Ambassador Wilkins and Secretary Riley, thank you for your ongoing inspiration. To my beloved Furman, President Elizabeth Davis, Don Gordon, Brian Burrows, the Riley Institute staff, thank you all for everything that you do. And thank you to all of my friends in the room, in government and lobby I've made over the years. Again, this room runs South Carolina, and I think y'all do a pretty good job. Otherwise, I would not be adding one new constituent a day, which I do. And a special thank you to my education crowd, Melanie, Pierce, Rainey, Frank, Mark, Stephanie, Dana, Patrick, Kat, Ashley, the Garrisons, Carla, Debbie, Kathy, etc. And I'll leave you with what I think are 3 truisms in political life for a serious politician. Number 1, leadership is telling truth when silence would be safer. There's so many examples of this. Just this week, I had the option of being quiet. It certainly would be easier. And the issue was closing primaries. Why close primaries when only 10% vote? The truth is we should be educating the 10% that their fears are not legitimate and encouraging the other 90% to vote. This lack of leadership is a vicious cycle. I contend the primary reason the 90% don't vote is because we aren't leading. So speak the truth, and apparently in front of 500 people. Number 2, think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. What that means to me in the political context is I fully realize that I am elected by just 51% of the vote cast by just 10% of the just 60% who are registered to vote. If you follow that math, that's just 3 out of 100 people have elected me in each of my 6 elections. To humble freshmen, I point this out, and I also ask them who their predecessor was. Most do not know, which is exactly the point. Yet what we do can impact generations. And 3, be constantly amazed in life. Amazement begets gratefulness. My grandfather farmed his own food, had an outhouse, rotary phone with a party line, black and white knob television, and it took him the whole day to drive his Ford from Piedmont, South Carolina to Toccoa, Georgia and back. His grandson has indoor plumbing, electricity, a cell phone, a car that drives itself, and I can travel to San Diego and back in the same day. Less than 100 years ago in 1929, Winston Churchill was quoted after he made a telephone call from San Francisco to London. Why I say the age of miracles is past, it's just beginning. I would only add, as long as we elect serious people. Thank you and God bless.
Well, congratulations again to tonight's honorees, to Neal, Bill, Jenny, and the Center for Heirs property team. Thank you for the exemplary leadership each of you demonstrate within your communities and across South Carolina. President John Quincy Adams once said, "If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader." These words seem particularly fitting in this moment. I think each of us will leave here tonight with renewed energy, hope, and an inspiration as we begin this new year. On behalf of Furman University, I want to express my deepest gratitude to all of you for joining us this evening for this 19th year of the Riley-Wilkins One South Carolina Awards series. This event is a clear reflection of Furman's vision to inspire purposeful living and to foster thriving communities. It is our great honor to share this evening with all of you, leaders who represent so many communities and industries across our state, who demonstrate unwavering, principled leadership within your own spheres of influence. Many thanks to Brian and the staff and students of the Riley Institute at Furman, who orchestrate this excellent programming each year. We're incredibly proud of the Riley Institute's mission and work to expand opportunities for all South Carolinians to learn, work, and engage in civic life. And a big thank you to all of the sponsors who made this evening possible. Now, I hope you'll join me for dessert and after dinner drinks back in the main hallway. This is a great opportunity to connect with friends and colleagues and to congratulate our 2026 award winners. The words we've heard tonight remind us that we're at our best and strongest when we work together. I'll take this lesson to heart throughout this year, and I hope it will serve as your compass as well. Thank you, friends, and good night.